I was asked to conduct a background investigation of Eli Home and the principals involved. That would be Lorraine and Michael Galloway. What we found as a result of our investigation was rather disturbing. There are court documents and history in those court documents of deceit and fraud that date back at least 12 years. Thank you, John. As I was saying, our investigation uncovered a history of deceit and fraud. Those words are used in court documents. They're not my words. The Galloways engaged as early as 1980, prior to establishing a nonprofit organization, when they owned a bowling alley in Garden Grove. Bowling alley was purchased with money extracted from a woman in Salinas, California, one Barbara Russell. Mrs. Russell was having financial difficulties and asked Mr. Galloway if he would help. Mr. Galloway indeed said he would, and took her home in a trust and allowed her to stay in it, and he would hold the title to that house under a mutual agreement, a contract. Unbeknownst to Mrs. Russell, Mr. and Mrs. Galloway not sold the home, but they obtained not one but 2 and 3 loans against the house. They defaulted on those loans, and it wasn't until such time as foreclosure proceedings were in effect did Mrs. Russell even become aware of this. That was the first evidence that we've uncovered to find the fraudulent manner in which the Galloways operate. They took the money and bought the bowling alley. A lawsuit ensued. Mrs. Russell prevailed in Monterey County. A judgment was entered against the Galloways. However, they never paid the money. Mrs. Russell died penniless as a result of this activity. Mrs. Russell, incidentally, was Michael Galloway's aunt. They bought the bowling alley from an elderly couple in Long Beach, the Palmers. The land of the bowling alley was owned by a corporation called the Kellogg Corporation. They defaulted on the Palmers, defaulted with the Kellogg Company. Another lawsuit was involved, another judgment. They now had 3 major judgments pending against them. Best way to liquidate those judgments was to file bankruptcy, which they did, and had the judgments set aside. At about the time they lost the bowling alley to the foreclosure, they started what was called the Eli Ministries, a so-called nonprofit California corporation. The Eli Ministries opened a home in Orange, California, defaulted on the lease. Another lawsuit was involved, another judgment, another court case, more attorney's fees for those people who were the victims. They moved across the street to another shelter, defaulted on the lease, another judgment, another court case, more attorney's fees. Best way to get out of that was to file bankruptcy. Eli Ministries filed bankruptcy in federal court. The judgment was set aside. They decided to start Eli Home, a new company, which they're now engaged in. They have, as a result of the Eli Home, thrift stores. Thrift stores operate on a cash-only basis. No checks, no credit cards, no receipts. They had a previous thrift store, entered into a contractual agreement with the owner of that property. They were thrown out, $10,000 lawsuit. Case was settled eventually, but the loaner didn't get $10,000. He got part of it, maybe $5,000. They operated out of the city of Fullerton for a while in a business on Commonwealth. The owners of the office complex asked them to leave or threatened them with a lawsuit. They left without paying the rent. They were there for about approximately 4 months. Actually, our investigation took all of 3 weeks. My partner and I worked 3 weeks on it, and I've tried to capsulize a little bit of it here in a few minutes allowed. But 3 weeks of investigation have uncovered an appalling history of deceit and fraud. We have not found one single engagement or contractual arrangement that the Galloways, Eli Ministries, or Eli Home has involved themselves in that haven't caused someone a great deal of financial pain. There are many victims out there, many of them. As a personal note, as I said earlier, I'm an Anaheim resident. My son attends Canyon High School in Anaheim Hills. I found it appalling that the Galloways have even infiltrated Anaheim high schools, or Canyon High School, and have managed to extract time, effort, and money from the school children for what I consider to be fraud and deceit, based on facts, not fiction, court documents, which I have in front of me, outlining case numbers, court cases, federal, state, municipal, Monterey County, Orange County.
Okay.
They're available to you if you wish to.
Sir, if you provide copies of those to the city clerk and city attorney so that we can, if those are public, I presume those are public documents. Appreciate that very much. Are there additional